That was Kansas basketball's Darryn Peterson talking about the noise and asking how he shuts it out, making it clear that somebody always has something to say and that he doesn't pay attention to it. It's just a part of the interesting layers of Darryn Peterson's season. For anyone that hasn't been paying attention to college basketball, he is one of the top players in the country. He was expected from the outset to be one of the top players in the country and expected by many to be the first or within the top three drafted in this year's NBA draft. But it hasn't necessarily worked out that way, Caroline, so far in this season. As when he's played, certainly it's been good, but his availability has been questioned. His want has been questioned. His desire to play at Kansas has been questioned. And now he's being asked about his ability to shut out the noise, and then that is his answer. What do you take away from that?
It doesn't do anything to help Darryn Peterson's case. I would think that when the entire college basketball world, and dare I say darn close to the entire sports world for a period of time, is talking about you and not necessarily in the most glowing light. Everyone's talking about your motivation, your love of basketball, your ability to be the savior of a franchise. And you have the opportunity to change the narrative about you, which is what you have. You have the opportunity to change the narrative every single time you get in front of a microphone. I would think, or I would hope, that Darryn Peterson would jump at that opportunity. Because what Darryn Peterson could have said is, look, I understand a lot of people are going to say a lot of things and a lot of people are going to have opinions about me. But when it comes down to it, I want to win. I love the University of Kansas. I love this basketball program. I love my team. And I will do everything in my power to bring a national championship to this school. Something along the lines of that. Doesn't have to be verbatim, obviously. But something along the lines of, I want to win. I care about winning. I'll do anything I can do to win. Winning is the most important thing to me. Basketball is my life. I want Darryn Peterson to tell us those things because all of those things have been in question. The talent, unquestionable. We see it anytime that Darryn Peterson's out on the floor. We saw it against Oklahoma State, 23 points in 18 minutes. But that wasn't the story. The story was the fact that he only played 18 minutes because he took himself off the court. So I want Darryn Peterson to set the record straight and to change the narrative about himself because I want Darryn Peterson's talent to be recognized. But right now, that's not the most important thing. Like if I'm a GM that's going to be drafting at the top of the draft, I want to hear that out of Darryn Peterson's mouth. The amount of want, the amount of motivation, the amount of drive, the amount of care. I don't want to hear I'm an antisocial loner. It's fine if you are. Like, it's fine. You don't have to be the bubbliest person in America in order to save an NBA franchise. But he didn't help his case. He didn't make himself look like he's any more of the impassioned and emboldened and brazen player that's going to be able to save an NBA franchise. He just kind of sounded laissez-faire. He continued the narrative that already exists about him and that he doesn't really care.
Everything you're saying comes back to passion. And I think what so many people are looking for from Darryn Peterson is some level of passion. Passion for the game, passion about being involved in the game, passion about the way the game is playing out. And that's seems to be, from the outside looking in, missing in so much of what we're seeing. And when it's missing from what we're seeing on the court, then we look to see it off the court. When we don't see it off the court, then it becomes a question of, is that your personality or is it just a greater indication that you don't give a damn? And that these are things that NBA teams have to figure out because, frankly, he wouldn't be the first basketball player in history that has gotten to where he is, but maybe didn't necessarily love the game. You got to figure that stuff out when you're an NBA team trying to figure out how you're going to draft. Winning cures everything is something we say all the time. In this instance, it's not just winning. I think playing with the thunder of the gods, as I say all the time. When I say that, I'm talking about the can't take your eyes off of it. Oh my God, this guy moment. Like we've all seen from transcendent players. You may not love the way certain guys play. You may stylistically not be an SGA fan or stylistically not be a Jokic fan. But when you watch them play, you understand exactly what they bring to the court and exactly how they do it. And the funny thing is we laugh about the laissez-faire approach at times of Jokic, but we can laugh about it because it's never in question on the court. It's not just the way he handled the question. It's that it matches a pattern to the way he seems to approach everything about basketball at Kansas. And if you don't believe me, Just ask Bill Self. Again, I keep going back to when your coach is making it clear, like, I don't know what else we can do. When your coach is saying, all of these things about the player in the process, it gives you some sort of an indication of, man, is there a bigger problem? And you're right. Like, I want to be clear here. Darryn Peterson's press conference didn't hurt his draft stock. And what he says at the mic won't hurt his draft stock. Just look at KD. KD's a living, eating, breathing example. You can be sensitive. You can have a problem with social media. You can not like anybody that covers the sport. You can have all of these issues. Nobody cares because you're KDMD, right? Like, when you're Kevin Durant, you can do whatever you want, however you want, and we will all accept you because you are great. Darryn Peterson may have had that luxury if he had dominated the way that many of us thought he would this year, but he hasn't. So when you haven't dominated, when your team hasn't always played as well with you on the floor, when your team's having to adjust to whether or not the ball should go through you or the ball should go to you, these are all things that Kansas is trying to figure out to try and maximize their best player. When you're this far into the season and you're trying to maximize one of the biggest stars that is supposed to be a top 3 surefire, can't miss franchise savior, that's a problem. When you stack that on top of the sort of perception, it only becomes more difficult. And while we're watching all of this go down, we're also watching one of his peers in this continue to rise. Again, I got to give Booz some real credit here. Just the way that Cam Boozer, who last night had almost as many points in the first half as Notre Dame did as a team. I mean, Duke throttled Notre Dame. And I'm sitting here looking at it saying part of the reason we're having this conversation isn't just about Peterson. It's about the fact that every time the Michigan game is caked in my brain. When Duke needed a big shot, the ball went to Boozer, and Boozer made those big shots over and over and over again. DeBonsa has lived up to all the hype. When you look at this and the way that Booz is playing on the number 1 team in all the land, if I'm Peterson, it's not just about the noise. It's not just about my attitude. It's not just about the fact that I haven't lived up to the hype. It's that the number 1 team in the country has somebody that is playing like he deserves to be the number 1 player in the country all at once in front of our very eyes.
Notre Dame stinks. Let me just say that. Just put that out there. Notre Dame is a bad basketball team. They're 12-16 this year. I don't really remember the last time Notre Dame men's basketball has done anything. But that doesn't take away from what Duke did. That doesn't take away from what Cam Boozer has been doing the entirety of the season. Because amongst all of the discussion with Darryn Peterson, is he still a number 1 overall pick, which is very much so in question. Sean Farnham went on ESPN and said, I've talked to NBA scouts, and a lot of them have taken them off their board entirely, if not dropped them down their draft board. So, like, that's a real discussion. That's not a media overhyping this overreaction. So, in response to that conversation, it's been, okay, AJ DeBonsa is going to be the number 1 overall pick. I think we have to make sure that we talk about Cam Boozer in this conversation. I would take AJ DeBonsa with the number 1 overall pick if I had it, but let's not act like Cam Boozer is on the outside looking in of some of the best, most elite, take over the game type of playmakers that exist in college basketball right now. And it is crazy, Fitz, that we have a team like Duke, one of the most traditional and storied programs in men's college basketball, the number 1 team in all the land, coming off of a massive win over the then number 1 team in all the land in Michigan. When everyone was counting out Duke, I was on radio on Friday. I was talking, my co-host was a college basketball guy. We had a lot of college basketball guests. Every single one of them picked Michigan, myself included. Proven wrong. So we have Duke, number 1 team in the country, just beat the number 1 team in the country, and you have one of the most talented players in the country playing for you and going off on any given night. I feel like Duke is still under the radar. Like, I feel like we're not talking about Duke. I feel like we're talking about Arizona and Houston and Michigan, all rightfully so. We should be talking about them. We're talking about Darryn Peterson. We're talking about AJ DeBonsa. We're talking about so many other storylines in college basketball, and we're not talking about Duke. And I don't know if it's because Duke has just set this standard, the standard of perfection, that when Duke meets the standard of perfection, it's not like, oh my gosh, look at Duke. It's just like, oh, Duke continues to just do Duke things. And they're almost victims of their own success. But it does feel like, in a way, wildly, if it's even possible, Duke is under the radar.
So this is a weird phenomenon I've seen of late. I will qualify to everybody. I have 1 VHS tape in my house from my childhood. I have 1 tape from my entire life. And on the side, it says 103-73. It's when UNLV beat Duke for a national championship. Like, there's no basketball team I've ever disliked more than Duke basketball. Like, it's just ingrained in my blood. But the funny thing is, for an entire generation, that was the easy thing to do. Hating Duke was the easy thing to do because they always seem to have villains, and they always seem to have, this program that you could just find a reason to, turn away from. You didn't really give a damn about Duke. It was easier to hate them. I'm not sure that this iteration of Duke is that, though. It's interesting to me that maybe it's because of booze, maybe it's because of Shire, but it feels like without the villain element, this version of Duke seems to be loved.